Oh man, it is going to be a hot one. I have to stop us from starting our little pregame conversation here because we're going to run through all the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. But it is episode 10, ladies and gentlemen, of the Monday Night Movie Club. We've made it all the way to 10 episodes. How you guys feel about yourself? You feel good about being productive in some limited shape of capacity?
We've come a long way since Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still missing $5.40. I'll put it that way.
Well, I was gonna send you a Burger gift card, but then it was gonna be like $20, and I didn't feel like going through all that just to send you a gift card for a movie that I was gonna offer you for free anyway. So it was just like, I'll think of something else. But yeah, you'll get your $5 back in some way, shape, or form in the near future, or not, or maybe not. Maybe we just don't get anything. Well, we'll decide. So.
Oh, that's cold. That's cold.
But we are here to talk about a movie. Well, we're here to talk about one movie in particular, but there's a bunch of movies that came out this weekend that I want to go through and have a run through about. But I just want to say, hey to everyone who is joining us here tonight. I know Duke Nukem was already going hot in the chat before we even started this whole shindig. So he's really ready to go. We were literally just talking about essentially the movie schedule for the remainder of the year. I just kind of get into it. Let's look at the box office for this weekend because it was a terrible box office this weekend. There wasn't much of anything going on. The Invitation was the number one movie in America this week at less than $7 million. This was the film that was written by former G4 collaborator Blair Butler, I believe her name is. And she essentially made a Get Out clone that was had vampires in it. So think Get Out and Twilight, and then mash those two together. And that's the movie that you got there. But I mean, just look at a lot of these numbers. Bullet Train is somehow still number 2, even though it only made like $5.6 million. I'm not even sure if they even broke even yet. I don't know what their worldwide gross is. Beast is still there, our movie from last week in the top 3. Top Gun Maverick is still the number 4 movie in the country. It seems like this is the only movie that anyone wants to go see this year. Dragon Ball. And then, of course, the movie we'll be talking about a little bit later on tonight, 3,000 Years of Longing, came out at number 7. We had a couple other movies that came out this weekend. Breaking, which was the John Boyega movie that came out at number 15, even though it was a very limited release, but less than $1 million for that release. Yeah, the South Korean film Alienoid, which only made like $73,000, which isn't really that surprising to me, all things considered. But, I mean, there just wasn't anything that came out that really resonated with people. Now, it was a busy weekend for me because I'm the actual sucker that saw all of these movies. I saw The Invitation, Breaking, Alienoid. I saw Samaritan, and then there was another one on there, and I can't even think off the top of my head, but I actually watched all of these movies in the theaters this weekend, and so it was very, very interesting for me. But we're kind of just talking about just the state of the box office, and before we look at what's coming up down the pike, I mean, there was this thing we talked about National Cinema Day, where they're going to come out with make everything $3 moving forward, or at least for next Saturday. They're going to make everything $3 no matter what format you go see it in. They're so desperate to get people in the movie theaters right now, but there's just nothing. Like, Hollywood's giving you no reason to go in right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go see Jaws in IMAX next Sunday, so I'm really excited for that. But and even with a discounted price, I'm still paying $30 for me and my roommate to go see it. So I'm looking forward to it, but it's almost like there's no reason for people to go to the movie theater anymore. I mean, they lease out the movie theater during football season. I think it's AMC, for Sunday afternoons for people to, because, and that's just been the last couple of years because I think of COVID and their receipt, the money they make isn't doing that well. So, I just think it's the state of the box office right now, the state of movie theaters. They're not very profitable.
Yeah.
And they have to sell you on the concessions to try to, rake in some extra cash. So it's sad, that there's nothing, that there hasn't been anything to sustain it this whole summer. I mean, I still would say Vengeance is probably the best movie I saw, the highlight of the summer.
Yeah.
I like The Black Phone, I liked Elvis, but really just feels like they're scraping the barrel to put some stuff on screens right now.
Yes, there was nothing that I wanted to go see. The only thing that I might see in the next couple of weeks outside of whatever we're asked to look at is the Red Shoes, and that's because I've only seen it on television. I've never seen it in the large screen, and that's still an iffy. It's interesting. I remembered when they were opening up the theaters and you had they were re-releasing all of these older films like the original Karate Kid, the original Ghostbusters, uh, the original Jurassic Park, and I think there was more enthusiasm then than there is for what's being out now. So yeah, there was nothing that called to me and said, "Oh, I need to see this. I need to rush out to see it." So uh, it's sad. I feel for the people that have to that work in the theaters and that have to try to try to survive on this. But well,
Yeah, it's not particularly great. Let's kind of just look at this outlook here, Phil. I'm looking at the wiki page. So obviously we're not counting Top Gun here because, like I said, that was released all the way back in May, but it's the only movie that people wouldn't go see at the moment. But I'm just kind of like looking back at some of the movies that we've seen this summer. I'm thinking to myself, what was the big summer movie? Now, I guess you could make the argument that the big movie that came out was Jurassic World Dominion because I mean it was I think the second highest grossing film of the year so far. So if you have to pick one by default, that's kind of the only one that really sticks out just as a major release. But you have Lightyear, that film bombed. They spent so much money into that one, and that one blew up in their face. As far as quality goes, I would say The Black Phone is probably the best movie I've seen this summer, just out of that actual like summer release that wasn't on a streaming service that came out in theaters. Elvis, for all intents and purposes, is still doing pretty well in the box office right now. So maybe you want to throw that one in there. Minions, I mean, it's not for guys like us. It's for kids probably like a fourth of our age at this point, but that did some numbers. Thor: Love and Thunder obviously crapped the bed. No one really went to go see that one. Yeah, I'm just looking ahead. Nope. Did anyone think that Jordan Peele's movie that is already in streaming a month after its release set the box office on fire? No, not at all. We saw what was it? The Vengeance, obviously, movie talked about BJ Novak. That's probably your best one of the year. And then what? Bullet Train. Outside of that, outside of this, you just got a bunch of movies that got relegated to streaming, and then now it's kind of like where we're at right now, and it don't get much better like the rest of the year. Like they have this promotion for $3 movies this weekend. That's because the only film that's being released this weekend is Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, which is like a religion, I guess satire with Regina Hall and Sterling K. Brown. That's coming. That's the only major release that's coming out this week.
and that's also being released on I think on Peacock simultaneously.
Yes, so you don't even have to go to the movie theaters to watch that film if you don't want to.
As is the new Halloween movie that's coming out. It's going to be a direct same day released in the theater, released on Peacock too. So it makes no sense theatrically,
No,
like why they would do that.
But yeah, so let's look ahead just in the month of September since we're coming up here, closing up on August anyway. You have Pinocchio in a couple of weeks. Is anyone looking forward to that one? I think that's a Disney Plus. That might not even be in movie theaters.
I think it is. I don't know.
You have Clerks 3, which Kevin Smith, he's back and he's doing his Clerks shtick again. You have The Woman King with Viola Davis and that whole female Black Panther ripoff about the slave colonizers. Don't worry, darling, and don't worry because we got a story about this film. We'll talk about that in more detail coming up. And then, of course, Bros, you have the monkeypox movie, so there's that as well. So, yeah, that's the entire month of September. And keep in mind, I think Warner Brothers just made the announcement. Like I said, we'll talk about this in a second. That they're scrapping Shazam. Was supposed to come out in December. They're scrapping that one, pushing it back all the way to March. So there's not gonna be no big superhero movie coming out at the end of the year for DC. So I think Shazam was probably one of the few films I was kind of looking interested to. Like I wasn't even that excited about it. And you've taken that one off the mantle too. So what, we just want to sit here piss in the wind until Avatar 2 comes out? Like what are we doing here for the rest of the year? Like what is the film industry become?
I don't know, but you know what? I'm just going to hold on tight and hope that Anna de Armas saves me from this terrible year with Blonde. Because, I just, at least the controversy around it, hopefully it's a good movie. It's interesting. But outside that and James Gray's new movie, which is coming out in November, which is kind of a dissection of the American dream. So, I mean, I'm sure conservatives are going to love that. But yeah. And so it's like, I don't really know what to look forward to or what to hope for at this point. I'm just hoping someone comes out with a good movie so I have something to write about at the end of the year, instead of everyone thinking I'm just a, decrepit old man who's shouting at the sky.
Yeah, I always think of you that way, as kind of a cranky young man who dislikes almost everything. But there's really nothing that I'm enthusiastic about. Well, maybe the movie with your generation's Gene Kelly, that might be of interest.
You mean the person that the director was sleeping with and caused her own divorce and a multitude of other issues?
Well, I would take issue with the point of divorce. They were never actually married. They were just engaged for about through two children. So they weren't I don't think they were technically married.
They were they had something technically, because I mean he did serve her papers live at CinemaCon. So
it had to do with custody, but
yeah, it had to do with
I could have sworn they were married because it was reported that they were breaking up. But maybe it was just a relationship.
It was I think they were just engaged, engaged through children and so no, there's nothing. I guess we'll just have to wait until Wakanda Forever, as it marches on towards sweeping the Oscars, and of course we've got the prequel, which would be, was it the Woman King? I kept thinking, is this like the Dora Milaje movie, where we're gonna see the Amazonian guard for the King of Wakanda became?
We're gonna go see this borderline fan fiction in movie theaters coming out here in the next couple of months. Like I'm looking at my list, and obviously Rob said this has been a bad year for films. Now I do, like I said, I do tend to watch a bit more foreign movies than you guys would, and I'm looking at my top 10 movies so far this year. Half of them are foreign films. Like I got RRR as like my top movie. That's an Indian film, obviously. I got maybe about 4 films that are from South Korea. They're in my top 10, and then that's pretty much it. If I just go like strictly like American like releases, I would have Top Gun, obviously. I would have Infinite Storm. I would have Hustle, which is the Adam Sandler film that's on Netflix, so that doesn't really technically count. I would have The Black Phone there, and then I would probably have Everywhere, All Things at Once. But that's a very, very light list to make for your best movies of the year, just out of the American bracket alone. So it's like, if it wasn't for these other foreign movies from countries that are just simply doing cinema better than we are right now, it'd probably be a pretty tough year to pick 10 solid movies throughout the list right now. Do you guys feel that same way?
I mean, I'm one of the pickiest people you'll find. And in the last 10 years, I think the quality has been atrocious. I think starting in 2012, even maybe, a little bit after 2007, but 2012, about the last 10 years, I have struggled to fill out a top 10 every single year. And it's only gotten that much worse the last couple of years. Now, I thought it was COVID, and maybe there's some of that. You can still use some of that to argue what's going on right now, but I really feel like the theatrical experience is dying. At least the American one, the Hollywood, the studio. I mean, the studio system hasn't existed and has been owned by these multinational corporations for a while now, which is kind of what we're seeing, is just the slow death of that system. But I'm still hopeful. I think that, as long as there's people who want to make movies and have an idea and, are driven by that, that's a good thing. But uh, the output this year has just been atrocious. And I'm going to really have a hard time, again, filling out even a top 5 this year.
Wow. Well, yes, I think if I try to remember my 10 so far, I think in any other year I might not have put them in the top 10, but you need to find something there. It could be a whole variety of factors, not just the COVID. And I'm having a harder and harder time believing that that's a rationale, because the same people who said that, oh, nobody went to see West Side Story because they're all afraid of COVID. These are, well, I mean, they're not the same people who rushed to see Spider-Man Home Away
No,
from
Far From
Home.
Home,
no way from
which
home.
is getting re-released in theaters, by the way.
Ooh,
So,
too exciting, too exciting.
mhm.
Um, but it's not just that. I think there are other factors. I think some of the movies that are being released or have been released have been nothing but lectures. And who wants to go to a movie to be lectured? And
No,
Oh, did he freeze?
that's good. Then we lost. Do we lose Rick there?
yeah, no, I'm here.
There he is.
I'm here.
Okay, now we got you. You cut out there for like that last like 10
Oh,
seconds.
He froze.
oh, well, I was just saying that it's not, some of the movies aren't interesting, and then I think for too long people were relying on the spectacle of the MCU to constantly bail out theaters, and it was true. But this last batch of Phase Four has been remarkably uninteresting. I mean, who here wants to see more Eternals? You know, even if it has your generation's Gene Kelly popping up in it.
No
But
one.
but even with but see, the problem with the Eternals was that it was helmed by Chloe Zhao, and the idea was that you're going to have an Asian woman who won the best director Oscar for Nomadland, who's going to make this movie, and it's going to give some artistic credence to Marvel.
Yeah.
And I haven't
Well-
seen it, but just from the descriptions, it's like, what did you think you were getting into, Chloe Zhao? Did you really think you were going to have any creative license here? It's like these people don't give a shit about the cinematic experience in the traditional sense.
Yeah,
And even
because
then, you could argue.
it's studio movies. It's like you're essentially the director and the writer is the studio. And when it comes to like these big superhero films, it's like, okay, this is the direction we want you to go. You're essentially a traffic guard for 2.5 hours. Now go.
Yeah, and you see, Marty was right. Marty was right in his views.
Yep.
But with Eternals, I mean, remember you also had a wide diversity. You had an Indian superhero. You had a deaf woman minority superhero. You had a gay superhero.
Yeah.
People aren't going to go see that. I mean, it's great for people who want to see themselves.
Wow, a gay guy who can
represented.
punch harder than your average human being. Here's my money.
Yeah.
Hey Rick.
Yes.
I saw a movie this afternoon that had no diversity and was way better. It was a movie called Boomerang, and it had an all-black cast in 1992, and it made $160 million on a $40 million budget or something like that. And it was great. And it was just a normal, like, studio romantic comedy, like nothing, but it just had all-black cast, and it was funny, it was entertaining, it was playful, and it's like, that has no diversity, and it didn't matter. Now, granted, it's showing a cast in a way that's traditionally not been shown, in movies or whatever. But it's like, diversity doesn't make a movie good. It's a good thing creatively, but it's about what's up here, not what the color of your skin is. It's, you're a creative person. You bring good ideas to the table. And that's what diversity should be about. I'm sure we can all agree on that. And
part of the problem of that is that you have these people, these progressives who grow up in this ideology that your sexual orientation and your race and your gender is essentially a placeholder for a personality. So it's like, oh, they just have to be gay, they just have to be black, then nothing else in between there matters anymore, because it's all about representation. Because these people think that they're doing diversity for the first time in the last 4 years about shit that has been done for like decades, that has already existed. They have no clue of, because they have no concept of reality whatsoever.
Yeah, well, I mean, that diversity will get them award recognition. I think this year or next year, at the Academy Awards, which is a requirement now, and also gives them applause. And it's interesting that you brought up Boomerang, Rob, because
Mhm.
the movie I was watching today was Coming to America, and
Mhm.
that one has an almost all black cast except for I think
The
Louis
good
Anderson.
one, not the one they did on Amazon
Yeah,
a couple
yeah,
years
Right,
ago.
yeah.
Louis Anderson.
Louis Anderson was a token white guy. I
Yeah.
understand, and it was funny. And I was laughing a lot. I was
Yeah.
enjoying it. I enjoyed it when I first saw it, and now I just wonder is Zamunda, next to Wakanda, because they're both fabulously wealthy, absolute monarchies.
Right.
Yep.
But I
So
mean that had
there's
nothing to do with yeah, you're right. That had nothing to do with diversity. That had to do with the material and the way it was performed. And I don't know anyone who really dislikes the first Coming to America, not Coming to America. I'll be watching that later. I've already requested it, so we'll see how good that is.
there's two things that I've noticed about films, especially this year. The first one is that a lot of these streaming movies is like these movies that are made specifically for streaming services. You would think, in theory, okay, these would probably be the movies that take the most chance because there's not a whole lot of risk for them, right? Like it's being dumped onto a streaming service, so maybe they can be a little bit more creative with the limited budget that they have. Maybe they can be a little bit more creative with some of the things that they probably couldn't get away with in a big budget movie, but these films are just like putting like no effort whatsoever. It's just like they understand, okay, this is a content movie, and then we're only going to play up to being a content movie and nothing more. So a lot of these films that come out on whether it's Paramount or Peacock or whatever these streaming services are, they're nothing more than just like 2 out of 5 films, which is like, okay, I'll watch this once and never watch it again because that's all the quality that I see out of this film, like whatsoever. There's really nothing else out there for it. And then the other thing is, what these major releases is that I think what we were talking about is that we're finally starting to see, I guess, the end result of a lot of these diversity quotas when it comes to these films, because now we're seeing, what happens when, oh, we have to make sure that everyone behind the scenes, everyone who's a writer is black or is a woman or is gay or et cetera, et cetera. So we hire a lead actress who's a woman, and everybody else behind the scenes has to be a woman too. And now we're seeing just the quality fallout of that. It's like you're hiring people who really just aren't qualified at all. They may have been a friend of someone who worked on like Rick and Morty or something like that. Now they're having like their own official movie. But it's like these people can't write characters. They don't know how to direct scenes. They don't know how to edit their movies properly. You just hired these people because you're trying to fit a quota, because we can't have too many white people behind the scenes, because that's bad now. So now we're starting to see all these movies coming out that are more diverse, but the movie itself, the quality of it aren't getting any better. They're getting worse.
Well, that was a selling point for Bros, and I know Rob's already got his ticket.
Yeah.
That it was a primary that everyone in front of the camera. I'm not sure about in the back, but everyone on screen was
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus, and yeah, that was a big selling point. And
Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't make the movie any better. And listening to you talk about this and describe it, it's almost like they're doing it on purpose. It's like they don't have any ideas anymore. They know that they've wrung out all the ideas that can make a competent, well-told story into a movie. And they're like, okay, so we're just going to start shoving this ideology down people's throats. And in terms of like it being a good story and a well-developed movie and characters, all of that, let's just throw that all out the window, because what really matters is the ideology being spewed here by these characters, and that we need to dissuade people of certain social attitudes that, and it's like, if you try pointing this out, people would be like, you're crazy, or you're not progressive or whatever. And it's like, listen, I was progressive up until about 6 years ago, and I just started paying attention, and now I'm not. So all I can say is I hope that movies get better, but it's like they're doing it on purpose because they have no ideas left. And because if they did, they would run on, oh, we're making good movies, but they're not. And so all they have is this ideology they want to like shove down our throats.
well, I think it's more the idea that you're going to use the medium to have a message, because I think what's his name, Billy Eichner, I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry,
Who cares?
He's insufferable, by the way.
he
Insufferable
believes that
dude.
this will be maybe the beginning of a flood of same-sex romantic comedies,
that no
and
one's gonna watch.
and I wonder, apart from maybe people who are same-sex or same-sex sympathetic,
Hmm.
is this going to have as wide an appeal? And if not, I mean, we'll judge by that. But we had the same issue with what is it, the A League of Their Own, where they're going to take an established story and just put in their own de facto fan fiction. And this is just it's just this curious idea that you're going to use these films to try to better the world trying to better the world, to be more tolerant, to be more open. All well and good, but is that going to still give you a good movie?
Well, here's the big problem that we have is that, like I said, we have five media corporations that control everything you watch, whether it's on television or in these movie theaters. And until we start getting back to a day like what we had back in like 70s or 80s, where it wasn't just five companies that controlled everything, it was like 30 plus or 40 plus, until we actually started having real production of films like the way that we used to, it's not going to change, because these corporations that are at the top right now, they're not going to change the way they're doing business anytime soon. Like, they would rather fucking die and get sold off than change at all. So it really is going to require essentially a brand new Hollywood, a brand new system to kind of save the cinema industry right now, because there's just nothing out there that they're producing right now that inspires anyone. Like this fucking Bros movie that's coming out. These people in this community are like how much of the population? Like less than 2%. You're gonna make a movie and you're gonna think that everyone in this population is gonna go out to the movie theater and go see this movie so they can go up see, oh, there's a bunch of people in this film that look just like me. It's like, I don't know, maybe if you guys are just dumb, or you just think that everyone just sees someone on television that looks like them, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, now I can actually enjoy this. Like, that's never been the way that cinema works at any stretch of the imagination at any state of Hollywood whatsoever. So this whole notion, you're working on an ass backward notion, and you're only doing it because you're getting the backing of these mega corporations who can afford to lose billions of dollars on something, because it's like, it's like Amazon, of all people, cares if their film industry goes to crap. They're still making trillions of dollars just on e-commerce alone. So
I've always put it this way to people who fight me on the representation debate, really over the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And it's like, and I tell them basically what you're saying is, I can't identify with a character that doesn't look like me. Mm-hmm. Listen to how that sounds. It's terrible. It's like, I grew up watching all kinds of characters who look all kinds of, hey, I don't look like the Toxic Avenger. I can still relate to a heroic sort of, profile. And that's the kind of thing, and that's a crazy example, but it's the point where that representation debate is nonsense. And it's like, if you have ever been seen on screen, that and it's like, no, by the way, I relate most to characters who are like, have a lot of negative attributes, like are self-loathing, are constantly getting in their own way, are foolish, are, you know what I mean? Like there are all kinds of associations I make that have nothing to do with, hey, they look like me.
Well, I think I had a discussion on Twitter with Rob, or at least the beginning of one, where I mentioned that in terms of actual population, or it might have been Jacob, in terms of population to cinematic screen presentation, there is an overrepresentation of LGBTQ characters in film and on television. I think at the most it's maybe 6% of the population that identifies as LGBTQ.
And I may be using very exaggerated numbers at that.
Could be. But in terms of film and television, there is an overrepresentation, and there's an underrepresentation of Hispanics. I know that, and it really has nothing to do, because I've seen movies that don't have any Hispanic characters, and I'm able to identify. I mean, please, I identify with Captain Renault from Casablanca, and he certainly does not look like me. So I don't understand why we need to identify. I get crabby when they cast say say Marlon Brando as Emiliano Zapata. Maybe that would irritate me a bit. But nowadays, now that you could have a black actress play Anne Boleyn, why not? And I'm sorry, that just becomes a. I've not seen the
Stupid.
miniseries, but it's become a fixation because I know there was one person that I do respect, and she commented, "Well, yes, Anne Boleyn has traditionally been played by a white woman." Well, that's because Anne Boleyn was a white woman.
Yes, exactly. Believe it or not, there was no black queen of France back in the 1600s. That didn't exist ever. When I hear that argument, I think to myself, okay, think of it in terms of like, like a 70s or 80s action film. Like imagine him saying that, well, I can't enjoy this Bruce Lee movie because I don't see someone on the screen that looks like me, or saying that, oh, I can't enjoy this Chuck Norris action film because he doesn't identify with me. It's like, yeah, when you were like 6 years old and that film came out, you probably didn't identify with a 40-year-old white man with a beard who could kick people's ass. Like that's not how enjoyment and emotional connections like work. It's like you vicariously live through people who are on screen. It's like you see guys like Stallone and Schwarzenegger like beating up people, and, killing monsters and stuff, and you envision yourself being in that role. That's why people still to these days love those type of movies. It was never, oh, I mean, it's great and all, but I wish that the main character is moving like someone more like me. It's like, well, then no one will watch that movie. That's the reality of the situation there.
Or at the very least, make your own movie instead of trying to ride on the success of a past one. That was a problem with the female Ghostbusters, and I know that's Bête Noire with Rob.
Mhm.
I saw it with my
I've never
friend.
seen it. I just make fun of it
Oh,
all the time because it's
sorry,
terrible. Oh, you're
sorry, I
good.
thought you had. But I saw it with a friend of mine who was probably center left, and we both agreed it wouldn't have been funny with men in the roles because the script was not funny, the situations were not funny. It had nothing to do with their gender. It had to do with the script.
Yeah.
And the people who were fiercely defending it and saying, "Oh, you don't like it because you're a sexist or you're a misogynist or chauvinist or what have you," I said, "No, it's because it's a bad movie. It's not funny. It doesn't. It's irrelevant to me." Both of us thought that, and we had slightly different socio-political views. Same with oh geez, now I forgot the movie I was going to say. But if it's a script, it's a script. If you're going to use a movie just kind of to promote your own
Yeah.
view, you're not going to get excited.
That's
Look. I'm sorry, real quick.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
look at Maverick. Trust me, I'm as tall as Tom Cruise, but I don't look like him. None of my Mexican friends look like him, but we all loved it.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing. Like these films, when you hear these people talk about, oh, I need someone there that looks like me, that's complete bullshit. Here's what it really is that these movies and these television shows have now become social causes for these people on the internet. So it's like they don't want everyone on TV to be black and gay and female so they can have more representation. It's because they need a social cause. They need something to rally behind so they can go on Twitter and say that everyone who doesn't like this show because it has a black lead or a gay lead or a female lead is an istinophobe. And I can feel like a good person by going at bat for this fucking multi-million-dollar Disney promotional mess. So I can go attack people on social media. It's all about themselves. That's all this shit is. You got all these people out here simping for She-Hulk. The first two episodes are terrible. And like the first episode is so bad, I'm not surprised that anyone who saw that would not want to watch a single episode of the rest of the series the second it comes out. Because it's fucking garbage and there's no reason for you to go see it. But these people are all like, oh, there's these incels that are online that are complaining about the show because they have a female lead. Let me go on my Twitter account and tell everyone that you're an incel if you don't like this. Watch me get likes and retweets. Like it's all egotism. It's all fucking narcissism when it comes to the end of the day, and it means absolutely nothing for the ultimate craft of filmmaking or trying to make entertaining television whatsoever.
Well, then you look at the hypocrisy. You look at Lightyear, and they made a big to do about having a
Yeah,
lesbian couple. What do? They either cut it out for the streaming services in the Middle Eastern countries, or they just I don't know. That's what they do. They just cut it out, and they're not going and rallying and saying, "Hey, no, 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 this is wrong. You need to restore it on the Disney Plus when it goes to Saudi Arabia or Qatar." They're not, and they've pretty much lost the Chinese market now because most of them aren't going to watch it. So and they even re-edit it to where like Minions now has to end suddenly with Knuckles got arrested, and I'm thinking
Yeah.
they're Chairman Mao is afraid of talking Twinkies. I mean, it just I know he's dead, but it just
Mhm.
seems so absurd, especially now that they can't rely on the Chinese to keep bailing them out.
Yep. And it is exactly what it is. I do want to talk about this one before we actually get into our movie. Now, we're going to talk about this in a little more detail tomorrow night on the Ballroom podcast. But this was a story that obviously broke over the weekend and kind of snowballed into a bigger thing. I credit Rob here for kind of bringing it to our attention. Here's a little preview for you guys for Bounding in the Comics. It's not posted just yet, but it will be posted in the next few hours here. And it's Shia LaBeouf calling out Olivia Wilde for lying about his exit for Don't Worry, Darling. Now, a couple things about this film is that apparently Warner Brothers, when they shelved Shazam, said that, hey, we only have money to afford to promote Black Adam and then this film. So this is supposed to be like one of their big releases coming out this year. I don't know why they give Olivia Wilde so much credit and so much power to think that this film is actually going to be up there, one of their biggest releases of the year. That's in and of itself. But essentially what happened here is that Olivia Wilde said that, I fired Shia LaBeouf because Florence Pugh, I think her name is, didn't feel safe with having him around. And, I'm a strong feminist woman, so I had to get rid of that toxic male. And then Shia LaBeouf came out and said that, no, actually, that's not what happened. I left because I couldn't get rehearsal time with my co-stars, and I didn't feel like the project worked for me. And then here comes the video, which I'll actually play for you right now because I'm pretty sure it won't get copyright claim. But there's a video of Olivia Wilde essentially begging and pleading for Shia LaBeouf to come back to the project because he left. This was posted specifically 2 days after he initially walked away from the project. So this is her in her own words.
Shia. I just went.
Oh, there we go.
Very sweaty, but I wanted to reach out because I feel like I'm not ready to give up on this yet, and I too am heartbroken, and I want to figure this out. And I think this might be a bit of a wake-up call for Miss Flo, and I want to know if you're open to giving this a shot with me, with us. If she really commits, if she really puts her mind and heart into it at this point, and if you guys can make peace, and I respect your point of view, I respect hers, but if you guys can do it, what do you think? Is there hope? Is there hope? Will you let me know? Okay, bye.
Doesn't sound like someone who was kicked out for bad behavior and all that nonsense that she was saying before. And then on top of that, the icing on the cake is that the co-star that she was trying to champion in this writing apparently is not even talking to Olivia Wilde herself because she's upset about the controversy regarding the film because obviously since they didn't go with Shia LaBeouf, they went with Harry Styles. And Harry Styles have since been in an affair with Olivia Wilde, which may or may not have led to the end of her relationship with Jason Sudeikis. So there's been a lot of questions that have been floating around in the media regarding, Henry Styles' involvement of the film and the kissing scenes and the alleged affair. So she doesn't want to have anything to do with the promotion of this film or with Olivia Wilde herself. So this whole thing is kind of snowballed into like one big giant mess for Warner Brothers. You just has one mess after another with all of their films here. So here you have this uber feminist movie that's supposed to talk about the plight, about how bad women had it in the 1950s, written by women who were born in the 1980s, one of those type of films. There's going to be this big feminist thriller, and it's all falling apart at the seams. So we'll talk about it in a little bit more detail tomorrow night, but just what are your general thoughts on the controversy about this film, and were you even looking forward to watching this beforehand, or are you more interested now that everyone hates each other behind the scenes?
Well, I'll say this. I actually, when I first saw the trailer, I was interested. I wanted to see it because I thought, like, what's this movie about? Is it interesting? Obviously, over time, I've kind of picked up what it is. It's basically like Stepford Wives, kind of thing. Criticism of, the sort of male-dominated 50 kind of view of the 50s, which I have my own kind of opinion on. But it's just like, okay, we've kind of seen this before. I think the funny thing about this whole controversy, this started actually 3 or 4 weeks ago when they started this promotional stuff, because Florence Pugh was being asked about the sex scenes with Harry Styles, and she kind of acted like, what, like there's a lot more to this than just the sex scenes, and it's like, okay, but you're playing the stand-in for Olivia Wilde, the director of the movie, who ruined her marriage by having an affair, or relationship by having an affair with Harry Styles during the shooting of this movie.
Yep. So not to mention, you're talking about Harry Styles, who's like a pop icon that you're going to get a whole bunch of like teen Vogue questions like, oh my God, what was it like making out with Harry Styles? Like,
right. So that's to be expected, because movies have kind of always sold themselves on that titillation. So that's not that surprising to me. Now all this other shit's coming out where it's basically, oh, Olivia Wilde, champion of women, you know, like she's a female director and her work is important and she's doing, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, she's just another Hollywood busybody who's trying to get her movie made, you know? And as an artist, I could pretty much take her or leave her, because I wasn't that impressed with her high school movie. I'm trying to remember what it was called.
Booksmart.
Booksmart. Yeah. It's like, okay. Like, okay. If Bros is like, I'm basically expecting it to be that same kind of movie, except, you know, Booksmart has some decent qualities to it where it wasn't a complete dumpster fire, but I don't think much of Olivia Wilde as a director, and this whole like Hollywood trying to protect her, trying to hold her up. And then this coming out was very funny. It was just like, pie and face. So it just seems like she's a dishonest person. She wants to present herself as a certain way. All the shit she said in the last week about Jason Sudeikis, you know, making a scene by handing her the papers at the like whatever convention she was at, or whatever it was. And it was like, you know, you really shouldn't have this play out in public. That is not good for your kids, by the way. Hi, Cassie.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just kind of my take on it. I'm sure I'll talk more.
Before I let Rick put his statement in there, I just wanted to note that I've heard a lot of people say over the last few years, not just recently, but over the last few years, that Olivia Wilde is kind of like an uber bitch behind the scenes and very difficult to deal with.
I believe.
And then obviously you have her co-star here, Florence, who I guess is kind of a rising star over the last couple of years, and I hear she has some ego issues as well. Then you throw in Shia LaBeouf into this mix, who's a mess in and of itself. So it's like, I don't know how anyone expected this whole thing not to end exactly how it ended up, because there's a lot of dumpster fires all around this film. But go ahead, Rick.
Well, there's just so much here that I don't understand. First off, they're sinking their promotion on this rather than on Shazam, which, for whatever faults the first one had, probably has a better chance of making more money than a kind of sci-fi story that you have here. So I don't understand the reasoning for putting in more money and trying to get this pushed. Second, Shia LaBeouf, for whatever his troubles, and yes, he is very troubled, although I hope that his announcement that, you know, he's found faith, I hope that brings him peace, at minimum peace for himself. Mm-hmm. For whatever his flaws, he has been acting since he was a child. He's even like a daytime Emmy Award winner for Even Stevens. Yep. So he's had years of experience. Harry Styles was found in that Britain's Got Talent for when they formed One Direction with 4 other kids. Oh, yeah. His filmography is very small. But you had Dunkirk, you had his little cameo in Eternals. Sorry if that's a spoiler. It's been very small. Why are you going to trust your film to someone who hasn't had a lot of acting experience, and who's I I always joke about your generation's Gene Kelly, but
is it because she's having sex with him? Sorry,
God damn it, beat me to
it. I don't mean to be like prude here, but it's like,
well, initially, I'm assuming that they were not having sex when he was initially cast.
Yeah. No, hold on a second. Now you actually bring up a good point. It's like, was she hooking up with Shia LaBeouf before she started hooking up with Harry Styles? It's like, is that why she had to personally plead to him via messaging and stuff like that? Because they may have had a thing going on too. Like,
I don't know. I don't know what the appeal is for either of them.
Did we just break a major Hollywood story here on the podcast?
But again, why are you going to try, besides the sex, and even though he's like what 10 years younger than she is, that
Yeah.
people are making a big deal out of that. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
I'm not gonna lie. When I saw her recently, I thought she was at least 40. And then I found out she was only 38. I was like, oh boy,
Yeah.
that's a yeah.
Yeah, but again, you're this is a major movie, and you're giving a substantial role to someone who's had very limited acting experience and who's probably not trained as an actor, or at
Hmm.
least who requires a lot more. Again, you need to build up these performers. You just can't transition someone from a pop star into a major actor. Not, I mean, film star you could do it, but not an actor. So there's so much wrong with that, and it is kind of strange that you are having an affair with your leading man, or at least with one of the people that you're working with. In other words, wouldn't this count as sexual harassment? Because she's the
No,
one that
the
she
gender
has
roles
power.
have been reversed now, so it's fine when women do it. When women's directors sleep with their co-stars, that's fine. It's only when the male directors sleep with their co-stars that is bad, and it's Me Too.
No, no. I mean, I'm pretty consistent on this. I mean, in any other situation, she as the more powerful of the two would this would constitute some kind of sexual harassment where you're having an affair. And then add Florence Pugh, whom I did like in the fourth version of Little Women. I thought she did a
Yeah.
good job. Um, Now you have your lead refusing to promote her own movie. So I just wonder how mad she is to just not want to have anything to do with the movie that's going to be not exactly a breakout for her, but it's going to be another stepping stone for her career. All of this is becoming a fiasco, and I mean, I didn't have the greatest enthusiasm to see this movie, but now I think maybe people will see it out of curiosity, and maybe see it so they could see Harry Styles and Florence Pugh in some sort of wild sex scene, which I guess if that's what you like, that's what you like. I have no opinion one way or the other,
Mhm.
but I'm still puzzled by those 2 points. First, why would you invest so much money on this versus something like Shazam, which would probably be bigger? And secondly, why would you cast someone who has limited acting experience? Yes, name recognition, he does. Every morning I wake up listening to his song because the alarm, for some reason, the radio station keeps playing that song at the same time, and it drives me crazy.
Mm.
But this is not a serious actor. I mean, this is not. I know I keep saying Your Generation's Gene Kelly, but this is not someone who, unlike Kelly, who had worked on the Broadway stage for years, or even someone like a Sinatra, who had been recording for years and done several nationwide tours before he became before he went into film. This is someone who was found on a kind of a TV talent show, who became famous, was embraced by a lot of younger kids and people in their 20s. So I don't understand why you're trusting a major role to someone with that limited experience. Shia LaBeouf, again, for whatever his problems, and I hope he finds peace again, he at least is a trained actor. Whatever his flaws, and he has many, he at least knows more about acting than Harry Styles. It's all very confusing to me.
Well, I think you're still looking at a lens that Hollywood still has like any legitimacy as a business when we just went through this whole thing of we're in the world of diversity hires and diversity for the sake of diversity, and they're hiring people who clearly aren't qualified to be good enough at the jobs they're giving, but they're giving the jobs because we're trying to push a quota now. So, like I said, this is all slow fallout of just terrible policies that we're seeing on the main stage, with the way that Hollywood is running. And like I said, I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I would like to say that Shazam 2 is definitely going to be a more successful movie than this Don't Worry Darling, which I'm only surprised has like a budget of like $20 million, but they're pushing this one rather heavily, which means that they will either artificially or really want this to be a bigger success than it actually will be. But I have a hard time seeing this being one of the top films of this year as far as box office wise goes. I just don't see it. So.
Yeah, they wanted to push it for awards probably, and they were like, "Well, Shazam is going to be there in terms of being successful, whether it's at the end of the year or in March."
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that their options were limited in terms of release schedule anyway, that's probably why they did it that way. But yeah, it's just to see if if it gets enough push behind it to get into awards consideration. But and who knows? The Academy Awards, are a joke. So who
Well,
knows?
you should know that I believe Harry Styles did write an original song for the film. So there's his entry. There's his entry into winning an Oscar, just like Taylor Swift's entry to getting an Oscar is through either song or through the live action short subject category, because they're going to put her music video as a short film. So yeah, these people think they want their Oscars. Taylor Swift wants her Oscar. Harry Styles wants his Oscar, and now we found ways to get them these formerly prestigious awards.
Hey, you gotta sleep your way to the top, no matter who you sleep with. I mean, I guess it's better to sleep with Olivia Wilde to get to the top than Harvey Weinstein. So maybe there is a little bit of progress going on here. Yeah, you say Harry Styles took a better road than Jennifer Lawrence took, and let's leave it at that for now, because
Wow.
when we want to get anyone in trouble, Silver Line's playbook.
That's terrible. I don't know why people like that so much.
It's terrible, but it's because it's true. Let's go ahead and talk about our film of the night, and which is a movie called 3,000 Years of Longing. Now, last week I gave you guys an opportunity to choose between one of four movies, and you guys unanimously picked this one. So this is your fault.
Listen, I'll take the blame because it wasn't unanimous. Rick just kind of was like, "That's fine." Out of all the options, I thought it was the best one in terms of what they offered. So
yeah,
I'm sorry.
When you sell one of those movies as kind of like the black female Get Out, I mean, or was it Evil White People, Evil White Vampires?
Evil White Vampires. It was the John Boyega movie about him robbing the bank. And then I think the fourth option was like some foreign film. No, the fourth option was actually the Stallone film. But then I knew you were going to have issues because it was on Amazon Prime, and I didn't want to hear all the issues about the streaming service. It's just like, I will just take that one off entirely and pick between those three.
All right. So yeah, I mean, when you sell it as Evil White People, I think like
which it was.
Yeah, but
somebody.
I mean, aren't all white people evil? I mean, that's what I keep seeing on the news every day. So there wouldn't have been anything new.
Yeah, especially the rich ones, apparently. The rich ones and like the ones that vote for Trump and things of that nature. I want to take a quick little detour off this film. We are going to talk about this in a second. I just want to pitch over to this one. Did you guys see the whole thing of like Sydney Sweeney?
Yes.
And people are attacking her family because her father wore a fucking Thin Blue Line t-shirt. And then these people are all like, you need to denounce your family immediately.
When it was breaking, I almost sent you the story and then I was like, he'll see it.
Yeah.
So it's again, it's like you're literally going to take something that's in a picture and extrapolate it out to mean that. And it's like I saw a tweet that said something like, "You should, if you don't throw your parents under the bus and they have conservative values, you're a Nazi piece of shit." And I'm like, I can't even deal with you people, because it's like, are you responsible for everything your brother does or your sister or your cousin? Or it's like, you have nothing to do with it. You happen to be related by blood. And even that, who gives a shit? It's a fucking political statement. It's a t-shirt. It's as tribal as wearing a San Francisco 49ers t-shirt or the Miami Hurricanes or whatever. It's like, who cares? It's the team you root for. So what?
And it's like, look, I'm not a big fan of the police either, but I would never sit there and tell someone, hey, denounce your entire family or else I can't be associated with you anymore. Can you imagine someone unironically told you that?
That is the same mindset that you had in China during the Cultural Revolution, where you had to denounce your family and your professors, exactly. And that is actual totalitarianism right there. That is totalitarianism when you're instructed that you have to denounce your family. My family has a wide variety of political views. I have people who are as close to communist as you can get. I have people who are very, on the right. I love them all because they're my family. And I don't care how they vote, and they don't care how I vote. I know that I disagree with them, but they're going to love me because that's more important than whether or not someone agrees or disagrees with me. And first, I just want to say I don't know who this person is. I only heard of the controversy. I have no idea who this person is. I don't, I wish them well, but that whole thing that creeps me out. That whole thing that you have to denounce them. No, you don't denounce them. I mean, that's something. Well, that was something in the. That's something
I'm
that
assuming this is fairly recently this happened to you, so throwing it out there.
yeah, this is something that you did in the Soviet Union. This is something that you did that you still do in China, where you have to denounce your parents. In North Korea, I mean, you turn them in if they make a joke about the great leader. This is exactly what these people are calling for, and it's disturbing to me. Let the man wear the back the blue t-shirt. Let the man wear a you know Bernie t-shirt. I don't care. She's not responsible for for her parents or her siblings or her neighbors' point of view any more than I am. So I'm perplexed as to why people genuinely care whether or not the particular actress would would have a family member who has a different point of view. Let them have their different point of view. It's irrelevant to me what they do on the screen. But yeah, that thing about denounce your family, that's scary. That's scary. That's generally scary to me.
Did you guys see the movie Silence, that Martin Scorsese movie that came out a few years
Yes.
back?
Yeah.
Where it was essentially about the I guess you could say the priests who were being forced to denounce their Christianity in Japan and things of that nature. Yeah, like you said, it's pretty much the same thing as this. It's like you have people, very, very evil people, who are out there telling you need to denounce your own family, destroy your own family, your own flesh and blood, because our progressive dogma says you can't be associated with wrong thinking in any way, shape, or form. I was like, I think about the story. You remember the story about the kid who snitched on his own father because he attended January 6th, and now his dad's going to spend like the next like 8 years in jail, and people are like hailing this kid as a hero because he snitched on his own father. Like this is exactly where we're at right now as a society.
Well, it's interesting. I think there was a Nazi era movie about the Hitler Youth, and it was something similar where the kid denounced his father, who was a communist,
Yeah.
for having the communist thoughts and not being supportive of the noble, pure Aryan youth. Um, and that's it's not worth it. It's just not worth uh, going after your family for something so inconsequential as to whether or not you voted for or against someone.
Yeah, it's just fucking ridiculous with some of these people. I don't know why we even put up with it at this point. But anyway, back to George Miller, right? So George Miller has a new movie coming out called 3,000 Years of Longing. And I found this film to be very, very odd when I first saw it, because I'm not sure what your guys' reaction to it was. Is that when I saw it, I couldn't exactly tell whether I liked the movie or I didn't like the movie. It was one of those like where I'm not to like sit on this one for like a day and really decide like whether I like it or not. Essentially, this film is about I don't know if you want to say old or elderly white woman, but I mean Tilda Swinton, she is in her 60s now, so I think either one works well for her. She's your typical progressive career woman, where she has put all of her work into her career and her business life, her work life, and has nothing to show for as far as the family goes. She's not married, doesn't have any kids, things of that nature. So she's a very, very lonely woman. And on a trip to Turkey, where she's going to speak about some nonsense, I don't even remember exactly what they were talking about, she ends up finding a genie bottle, even though they don't exactly call them genies in this movie. They call it like Daijin or something like that.
Jinn. Yeah, and
Jinn.
it's like the Middle Eastern, like folksy,
Yeah.
legendary name for a genie is the Jinn.
Yeah,
which is
Jinn-
creepy
Jinn-
because in Wishmaster they had the same name, and that movie creeped me out when I was a kid.
Yeah,
So
Jin,
the
Jin,
whole
Jin
take
is
your
the,
wishes and twist them.
yeah, Jin is the I believe the original pronunciation, and it was just changed to genie.
Because of reasons, right?
Right.
But she finds this bottle and releases a genie, and of course the genie is Idris Alba. So he tells her that I need you to give me 3 wishes, anything that your heart desires, because that way I can regain my freedom. But of course, this woman, she has nothing that her heart desires anymore because she's elderly and she has no family. She has no heart. So it's like she has to like really, really struggle to get three wishes like out of this guy, because at first she thinks that he's a trickster and that the wishes are going to come with like a twist, and I don't want to deal with like the twist. But essentially, to get her to make any wish, he tells her the story about how he went to became a genie, and there's essentially three separate stories about how he initially got trapped and to become a genie, then the closest that he's came to being relieved of his curse, and then of course the last situation that found him right before her characters essentially finds him in, like I said, they're in this hotel room trying to make a wish, and she's like really nagging him, things of that nature. So I want to get your general thoughts on just this film. Like I said, I saw this the first one right off the bat, and I was like, I don't exactly know exactly how I feel about this one, because I feel like there's a lot of themes, there's a lot of storytelling elements, especially like the whole fantasy thing to it. But it's like I don't know if any of it worked the way that it was supposed to, or maybe it was just poor storytelling on their part. So I'll let Rob start off there, and then I'll go to Rick about what you guys think of this movie.
Yeah, well, the first thing they throw this in at the very beginning is that basically Tilda Swinton's character is a scholar of literature or mythology or basically of like old stories, and so she has to tell the audience.
This is a useless degree, right?
Oh no! Oh yeah, absolutely.
You'll be paying for it. Don't worry about it.
At the very beginning, even before we see her on the plane in the movie, she explains that everything we're about to be told is kind of bullshit, but this is the only way that she can tell this story, and it's like, okay, so everything's bullshit. So right from the bat, we're divested. We don't care about what we're about to see. Thank you so much. And then, and even before that, George Miller welcomes us to the theater. So I thought that was really nice. And it was like, oh, poor George, your movie's about to fail. There's that. And then there's the whole thing with like what she ultimately wishes for, because she's trying not to fool herself because she has all this background information. So the movie isn't too in love with its own idea, that it's a deconstructionist Aladdin movie where, this lady and a genie, I don't want to spoil it, but basically, fall in love. And we're told, because Idris Elba's telling us this, all of his backstory, these three short stories, and it just doesn't add up to a whole lot. It's supposed to be like an adult romance movie that takes you off into these far places dealing with mythological stories. It doesn't really add up to a whole lot. You know what I mean? There's some nice CGI, but a lot of it's very, you get used to it after a while, and it's just kind of like, okay, there's a few nice flourishes of it, and then it's just like, okay, we're in a CGI, big studio movie, something with a larger budget, but ultimately something that's kind of lifeless and dull. So yeah, I just didn't think that there was much to the movie itself. It didn't have a whole lot to expand its ideas with.
Sorry, I was slightly distracted because Genie in a Bottle was playing in my head.
The Christina Aguilera song?
Yeah.
You gotta rub her the right way. Come on.
Yeah, and apparently a lot of guys have rubbed her the right way.
I'm not answering that. Well, my first impression was that this is a really talky movie. I was surprised at just how much talking there was in it, particularly from the Jinn, who just kept going on about all his misadventures. And I also thought, well, it must be nice for Tilda Swinton. I mean, to make a movie where most of the time she's just in her bathrobe and a big towel over her head. I mean, that looked.
Now that's a plus. I mean,
that was kind of dull, because I think I was thinking this: the trailers that I saw, I think might have given people the wrong impression. I think I wrote this in my review, where they thought that this was going to be kind of a fun, zippy movie where you get to travel through various places. No, it's kind of a slow, very serious, kind of dry, and not particularly interesting when it comes to both leads, who I think trying to give it their all, but just I wasn't invested in his stories, and then I would get distracted by scenes of the Sultan's brother imprisoned with these with a bevy of very hefty women,
Big
and
girls.
yeah, yeah,
As Charles Barkley would say, those were some big old San Antonio women in the film.
well, I was going to use the term chubby chaser, but it
I
just
mean,
seemed very
Chubby's very underselling some of these women on there.
yeah, and so that's not something I really would rush out to see. It just seemed, like I said, my main takeaway was that it was very talky, and just it just kind of went on, and I was like, I want to say, uh, please stop talking and do something. You use your powers to impress her. Zap something. Don't just keep telling me and telling and
So,
showing.
here's one of the central problems with the film. Is like I said, the film essentially focuses on three short stories about the life of the genie, right? But the stories really don't amount to anything. Like they don't really have a grand scope on the way that the movie ends, like the conclusion of the story here. So you're telling a story that makes you sympathize for the genie's character, and that's fine. But then you're sitting here, it's like, okay, well, what are we supposed to feel about Tilda Swinton's character? Because like I don't really feel anything like for her whatsoever. Like I said,
Mhm.
she's a typical career woman who essentially wastes her life not having any kind of family, not having any kind of like husband or any kind of romantical life. She has like I said a degree that, let's be honest, unless you're going around the Turkey to talk about mythics and stuff like that, it's pretty much useless to begin with. And so you have a woman here who obviously, I think the lesson maybe she's regretting not really chasing love as seriously as she has in her life, but the story itself really doesn't focus on her like, oh, it focuses on the genie story. So it's like, yeah, you kind of have a film that has really no connection because the character that we're supposed to be connecting with, we don't connect with in the entire course of this film.
Well, it lets her off the hook completely because it
Mhm.
has her one serious relationship. It shows her, I don't know if it was her husband like leaving her for a younger woman in
Yeah,
some, I don't know if that was like in Paris or whatever, but so it gives that kind of feedback, and there is a glimmer, there's a sliver of humanity, and it's so weird because Tilda Swinton has made a career out of being cold,
yeah,
villainous, indifferent. I mean, that's really what she does so well. But there's this sliver of humanity when she's talking about kind of her loneliness and trying to find meaning in her life, and she has her career and everything. And I get the impression that that's supposed to be okay, but she wouldn't be looking for something if she wasn't somewhat unfulfilled. But it's just, yeah, I mean, the movie doesn't really focus on that. She's sort of the audience. Tilda Swinton is the audience in terms of being told the backstory of this genie.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, even if she is was it narratologist? I believe there's a term that they use for what she is. Even for a narratologist, if they have the jinn pop up, and she has absolutely no emotion to having this apparently allegedly mythological creature just pop out and just have
yeah.
have this large man or jinn person in front of her. She's like, "Oh, okay, well, all right."
She's almost like a robot emotionally throughout the entire film.
Hmm. So there's no. I mean, what you could have had a sense of wonder about all of this, and you could have made the adventures more interesting as he's trying to convince her. At the least, get her out of the hotel room and have him kind of pursue her in his efforts to get her to make a wish. But it just seemed like she didn't want to be there. I don't know if the character didn't want to be there or Tilda Swinton didn't want to be there, but it was just kind of dry, and you just um you were impressed with some of the visuals in it, but not enough for me to think, oh wow, this is something marvelous. And what was it, from the mad genius of George Miller, as the trailers promoted. and that's a beef with me. I don't like trailers that promote their directors as these great beings, the mad genius, the twisted
Well,
mind, all of this. I mean, just just say you're the director of Mad Max Fury Road and get it over with.
I understand what you're saying, but with movies, especially in movies like this, you have to realize that they do that because there really isn't much else going for the film to actually get people to get into theaters to watch it. So you have to tell people, hey, by the way, guys, George Miller directed this. He hasn't done a movie in 7 years. Don't you guys love George Miller?
But they
Everyone's a
didn't.
big fan of Mad Max.
But they didn't promote it at all. Like, I didn't see a trailer for this until I think it was a TV spot on Amazon Prime, IMDb TV or something, or Peacock. That was the only time I saw a promotional ad for this movie. I didn't see one trailer. And so, it was one of those 15-second promotional ads. Yeah. So, I mean, there was almost no marketing for it. And I want to say this. I'm sorry, Idris Elba. You have 2 movies out right now. And they both suck. They are both bad. So I'm sorry. Get a better agent, buddy.
Yeah, and the sad part is this movie still might be better than Beast. So
no, the other way around. I thought Beast was better because at least Beast, you have him punching the lion. That's the big selling point here. He's talking to Tilda Swinton in her bathrobe. That's not exciting.
A 6-foot elf. He's got those elf ears.
Yeah.
He's like, what?
Well, Spencer actually brought this up in the chat. Let's talk about George Miller here for a little bit, because I mean, this whole film is really just a passion project for him and his daughter, who co-wrote the film for him. So this is a guy, like I said, since Fury Road hasn't directed or written like anything. So this is supposed to be like his big comeback film, but it really just feels like he did this because he wanted to do a project with his daughter, which is like, okay, fair enough. I mean, I think George Miller has earned the right to be entitled to like his own personal like passion project if that's what he wants to do or whatnot. But I don't know. I just felt like the entire time I'm watching this film, it's like it's definitely missing something. Like, I don't know if, like I said, if they're so in love with its own, like, I guess, story or of its own idea, but it's like you're presenting something to us, but there's definitely something missing that's connecting the course of the story with the audience at hand. What do you kind of think about just his general direction and writing of this film, especially for a guy who's kind of been out of the game since he won so many Academy Awards for Fury Road?
I mean, this is I don't know if it's just fantasy is not his strong suit, because George Miller, I mean, he did Mad Max, the Mad Max movies, the original ones.
Yeah.
Before Fury Road came out, and I personally love Mad Max, the very first movie that came out in 1979, I want to say. Like, that is to me a great sort of like genre movie. This movie does not feel like it's in his wheelhouse. He doesn't seem to know what to do with it or where to take it. You say he wrote it with his daughter. That's good, because that gives me some insight, because I thought he just wrote it himself. So that would lead me to believe, like, what were you thinking? Because there's no sense of passion in this movie. That's the thing. Yeah. It's like, this is a guy that, like, when it's in his head of what he wants and a vision, he can really bring it to life. And I wasn't necessarily a fan of Fury Road. I think it was one of the most overrated movies that came out that year. Even if I could still say it's a good movie, it's just, it's a one big NASCAR race. It's just a big circle, them going to the promised land, finding out there is none, and then going back. Yeah. So, but I still trust him. I would still go to see a movie directed by George Miller, but I think that this was a misguided opportunity that he just wasn't able to execute very well.
Well, I wonder if the fact that this was adapted from a short story or a series of short stories had anything to do with how they approached the overall script. It wasn't, like I said, it felt very dry. It felt a little remote, a little distant. Like there wasn't anything interesting here. You are kind of like Tilda Swinton, just listening to these stories by this overgrown elf who was just telling you how he got trapped and all the miseries that he went through to try to get out of his bottle. And I mean, one thing I learned is I was not aware that King Solomon was such a mystical figure that he could trap jinns inside bottles. I thought he was just like the second king of Israel. So I and actually it made me think, geez, I'd like to see a movie about King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Not this one, but I'd like to see one about their story. It just seemed. I mean, I'm glad. I'm glad that he got to work with his daughter, and it would kind of be like if Ron Howard directed Bryce Dallas Howard in a feature film.
She's not good enough to be in one of his movies. Okay, so that would be the issue with that. And I'm not a fan of Ron Howard, but like, he has a certain standard for his actors, and he doesn't meet it. So,
Well, I wouldn't have gone quite that far, but I think he was on to something there.
But it just seemed rather dry. And again, I go back to talkie, and you just want to say, all right, we all have our sad stories. Just try to convince me to give me the three wishes, or at least put me back in the bottle. Give me to someone who would want those three wishes, and let me move on.
Yeah.
Like I just like.
So it's obvious here that this film is pretty much carried on the performances of Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton, even though when they're doing the short stories, they're not really mostly the focus of it at times, but the whole film lives and dies on them. And when we get towards the end, like I said, the first 2/3 of the story is really focusing more on his character and his background. So then when we take that shift in the last act where the movie's kind of focusing on her and her life, and her life is just very, very mundane. Like, she lives next to a couple of neighbors who I guess are supposed to be kind of bigoted old British women and things of that nature. Just kind of show where her life is at the old moment. I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, it's like, yeah, like I said, there's something that's just not right here with this film, because we put all the focus onto him and then we switch over to her, and I just feel nothing for her character at all. Maybe it's just me and my personal opinion about this film, but both of these actors, they're obviously accomplished actors, so it's not really the fact that they were just terrible in this film. It's just the writing aside of it, they really didn't have much to go off of here. Then when you're kind of settling into this third act where they kind of become this old married couple, or at least they try to portray themselves like this old married couple, it's just okay, you guys just kind of lost the whole plot and the whole steam of this film going into this final act here. Did you guys feel that same way as well?
Well, I'm just the entire time I'm trying to figure out, if the whole thing that we're seeing and being told is a metaphor for what really happened to Tilda Swinton. It's sort of just okay, so is this the story of a barren career lady who is an academic all her life, and her marriage goes to shit, doesn't have any kids, and she starts an affair with a big black man, and it gives her the sexual release she's been seeking her entire life. And once every 3 years, he comes back and visits her and gives her a good fuck. So maybe that's the literal. I don't know, guys. You might be able to help me out, but that was my take.
Well, roll credits, and we're done here, ladies and gentlemen. No, we're not gonna.
That was good run, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue anything that you said there, especially the way you wrapped up that blow. What do you think?
I love Rob's version. I would have loved to have seen that movie more than what we ended up seeing. Well, again, it's not very interesting, because once they go back to London, he really doesn't do anything except apparently kind of start disintegrating to where she needed to give him her second wish was speak, basically just talk as you're falling apart. And yeah, there was just it just kind of lost momentum, and you're just kind of waiting for it to end at that point. It would have been better if they had. I don't know if they actually fell in love, because I think her first wish was to be loved in a certain way, and he could do
even that was phony.
Yeah. So yes, I guess every older white woman who's never had a husband, or I mean, who had a husband, never had kids, I guess all she needs is you know a large muscular black man to fulfill her desires. Not that we're going to get into the idea that maybe this this is quote problematic to have the black man be subservient and be basically a servant to the older white lady. I'm
Yeah,
surprised
because
nobody
she
mentioned that.
definitely wanted to show him off to her old bigoted friends towards the end too. Remember, it's
Mhm.
like, oh, this is my friend, and she showed the smile on her face when she finally got able to say that. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, but I'm assuming the Brexiteers looked very happy to see him.
Mhm.
Maybe they thought that he would do outcall services. I don't know, but it just yeah, it just seemed once we got to London, th- th- there wasn't just any point. I mean, you can't really believe that they are fallen in love because they did they weren't very romantic. It would have been much more interesting. I'm just advocating for Rob to have his version be released. I'd love to see that version where he just comes. And I even wrote in my notes. I wrote in my
It,
notes. He came back for a conjugal visit.
but it's a porn. It's like a porn circumstance or scenario where it's like I'm gonna rub this bottle and this, you know what I'm saying? This like ridiculous form of a genie comes out, and I'm deeply, whatever. Like it's a ridiculous premise for a movie. It's like I'm deeply moved by his story and how it's like
yeah,
okay,
that was
I don't
totally what deeply moved her.
right. So it's like
Yeah,
it made it make
I was
sense.
moved by the stories where he had to endure seeing very large naked women falling on
Yeah.
falling on themselves, falling on their behinds to crack the floor and let him out of the bottle. Yeah, that's
Lewis Black had an old joke. I don't know if you guys remember it. We was talking about no matter how big you are, if you go there's God, I can't remember the exact name of the restaurant he mentioned, but it's like every time you go there, there's always going to be someone there who's at least 100 pounds more than you'll ever weigh in your entire life. And that was like all the time when I was looking at those
Like
women in the movie. It's like, yeah,
Old Country Buffet or something like that. I mean, I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know what the joke is, but yeah, something like that.
Yeah, those there were some 500 pounders in that one. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
It's fair. Yeah, definitely do not go take your kids to go see this movie. You'll scar them for life. For a film here that had a production budget of about $60 million, I thought a lot of the costume design was pretty well. The set design was pretty decent too, but some of the visual effects, like the special effects, was like this is like really pushing it on some of the things, especially when like Idris Elba's character was supposed to be like bigger compared to like everyone else, and then like a lot of the things like the smoke and the genie dust, I guess you could say, didn't exactly look too well either. I'm thinking to myself, like, does it really have to take like $200 million to get a halfway decent special effects guy on some of these films? It's like it couldn't possibly be the case, or are we just stretching our visual effects people a little too thin now? Is that the problem?
well, the money was all spent on endless bathrobes.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, the fact I knew that it had more money than the average sort of like Hollywood, entry. I knew that it was
Yeah,
more
yeah.
than 30 million or whatever. But it's like even if you give them another $30 million, there's not enough ideas here for. I mean, you know what I mean? They can make it a little look a little nicer, but I think the biggest problem with this movie is just that it doesn't have any ideas to sort of flesh out and to sort of bring to life. Because that's the problem, is that if you don't have a basis to work from, to kind of bring to life, to paint your canvas with, it doesn't matter how much money you have. Ultimately, you're just going to waste more.
Yeah.
Because this made what, $3 million this weekend, or not even?
Three. No, actually, it made almost three. It's about 2.9, but
So
yeah,
5% of its budget it made in its opening
yeah, just
weekends.
production budget. So you could actually argue from that perspective, how the hell did they even give this movie $60 million? They were never going to make that money back.
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe Fury Road made so much money that they're like, we can lose 60 million. That's okay.
Is
Maybe
that the thing though? Did they really think that people were going to go rent out to see this just because it was George Miller? They thought that maybe this might have been good because there was no, like I said, there was no like hot harem in this film. There was no fucking car race with guitars or anything like that. Like, how did you guys justify that budget?
Well, I'd argue there was a harem. There was
Uh,
the harem
Technically, yeah,
the harem sponsored by Lane Bryant.
yeah. I mean, you're technically not wrong, but I just hate envisioning that in my mind. Maybe I should just give this film a worse grade just because of that scene, by the way. But final thoughts on this film. I think Rob pretty much hit it on the nail on the head. I mean, this movie just feels like an unpolished idea. Like this was something that maybe should have been, I guess, cleaned up a little bit, maybe like the first draft or the second draft of the film, where you're formulating all the ideas, but you need to like work out like some of like the potholes and the kinks of the film, which it doesn't exactly flow out very well. Like you said, I mean, now you can kind of just look at to it. This is a story of a fantasy story of a down bad white woman who just needs something in her life to respire her and rekindle her fire that's been out for quite some time. And I was like, well, I mean, there are some dudes out there that are probably, have sex with a mildly attractive 60-year-old white woman. So, I mean, I don't think you need a genie to come to this realization. But if that was your final thoughts here, I mean, yeah, no, I didn't hate this movie, but I can't really go too far in to say this was a good movie either. This is like pretty much right down the middle for me. I'll probably give it somewhere like a 2.5 out of 5. Like for me, like I have no desire to watch this one again. Like if they did a couple of things better, could have given it. I could have gone with it, but not just too many issues with this one. What about you guys?
Well, there's two stories that come to mind that I think of when I think of this movie. And it's not Aladdin. One is, and it's just in terms of like what the story is and what it makes me think of, like taking that basic premise and trying to flesh it out in an interesting way. So there's a movie called Stranger Than Fiction that came out 15, 16 years ago with Will Ferrell, Emma Thompson. It's the same kind of idea, but it's just taken in a different way. It's just, this story is being written by this guy. He hears it one day, and you kind of like have these two pieces meet up by the end of the movie. And it's kind of interesting. And the other story is Rumpelstiltskin. This guy is telling this woman this story, basically trying to convince her of something. Now, that would have been way more interesting if the genie was like a trickster, if he was like an evil spirit that was trying to trick this woman into revealing something or into, that would have been
They teased it for a little while, but it never came to anything.
But like a parable or something. It would have been a really like a cooler, inventive short story fleshed out. None of that happened. So, and it was just a really undeveloped idea. So I gave it a 2 out of 5, just trying to be nice, but there was not much here for me to kind of sink my teeth into or to be interested in. Very few characters or sort of interesting aspects of, their characteristics to kind of, keep me interested in the movie. So, just gave it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
That's going to be my score. Although I think I might have been a little more generous in my initial reviewing, maybe giving it a 2.5. Again, I go back to this idea that it's very talky, and you just worse you show and tell simultaneously. You have to tell that, for example, Solomon trapped him in the bottle, and you have to show when he becomes trapped in the bottle. You have to tell that this sugar lump, of all the names you have to give the one of the women in the harem, it's a sugar lump, that she got up from her bath and then she fell and you broke the floor, and then what she's shouting. You have to show and tell. I hate that. Just do one or the other. And then they look very kind of bored with the whole thing. It can't be very exciting when you spend the majority of the movie in an Istanbul hotel room where you really don't see anything but other than talking. I would have thought that's a long evening. It just seemed very dry and very talky, not very interesting. And again, I agree. It's not something I would rush out to see again. It's I can see why not a lot of people went to see it, because it just even if the people who saw the trailer, I kept thinking they're probably going to think this is a different kind of movie. It's going to be more fun. This wasn't fun. This was too serious, too somber, downbeat. And,
This should have been something kind of in the realm of like maybe a never-ending story, or maybe something like Labyrinth. Hell, I even take a fucking The Princess Bride. Like it felt if you were going to go towards that like that dark fantasy type route, but it was like this just had none of that.
So yeah, that's mine. Like probably a 2 out of 5.
Did anyone else feel this too watching this movie? It's like this felt like some kind of like A24 fucking produced film. Did anyone else feel that? Like just kind of watching it like, during the because it felt like almost I don't want to say pretentious because I feel like a lot of A24 films are just kind of pretentious in nature. But
it didn't feel like A24 because A24 is even like goes out of their way to be even weirder. You know,
yeah,
like they would make it so overtly artistic, like where it would be unbearable. So I mean, I go both ways with that. Like I like A24 movies sometimes, but most of the time I think they're largely overrated just because they're like overly artistic and go out of their way to be weird. And I just but no, this felt more like I don't want to say for normies, but it felt like boomers who just kind of want to go and see a like romance between two older actors. I don't know, like I don't know. I don't think this movie's for anybody, to be completely honest with you.
Not even like boomer white women who just want to fantasize about sleeping with younger black men.
Maybe that.
No,
for the people.
No, I really can't imagine people who I mean, it's getting very positive reviews in some places.
Shocker.
And about about the meaning of art and literature and storytelling. Now it boils it down to it. But I'm going, yes, but they're not very interesting stories that he's telling.
So for everyone else who spent $80,000 on a lit 2 degree, then this will probably play off for you. So yeah, that's the film, 3,000 Years of Longing. So yeah, it's gonna be a rough year. I don't see any other movies that are gonna be coming out that are any better than this. So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a choice here before I'll let you get back to your point here in a second. But since we're coming up on the next week, and the next week there isn't a whole lot of anything good coming up, I'm gonna give you guys 3 options: A, B, or C. We can do door number A, and we can go watch the film Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul for next week. And I'm pretty sure you guys are really, really looking forward to that one. Or we can do door number B. And door number B is next week we come here and we talk about the film Jaws. Since some people have already committed to watching Jaws re-release, we can talk about that. Or door number C, and this is the one that Rick is really going to love. We can go out and watch the re-release of the more fun stuff of Spider-Man No Way Home with the 11 minutes of exclusive footage that they re-added into the film and talk about that next week. So which one tickles your guys' fancy, A, B, or C?
So I actually have a weird suggestion, if it's possible. I know that so John Hamm is going to be in this Fletch sequel, and it's probably terrible, but anyway, I just thought I would throw that out there. But I think it's only video on demand, so it's probably not an option for Rick. So anyway, but yeah, I would just say Jaws off the top of my head, just because that's the best option.
You already got your tickets.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, the thing is, I saw Jaws once on DVD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it since I was a kid, and I think it was on like cable, so I know that doesn't count probably.
I mean, I wasn't actually. I think I was planning to watch Honk for Jesus because I haven't canceled my Peacock subscription yet.
Yeah. Well.
And I'm not.
Hey, I mean, since you have Peacock, there's a WWE pay-per-view coming on this weekend. You can watch that one for the $5 that you already spent. Aren't you excited?
I wouldn't know. I mean, I go to these things only because my best friend enjoys wrestling. He's taken me to a couple of matches, but not that I know who any of them are. Yeah. I like to tell him that I haven't seen anything since probably the Great Kabuki, but I have. I don't know. I mean, I don't dislike Jaws, but I would probably have to get it from the library because I didn't plan to see it in theaters. And who knows? I mean, I might even be curious about these 11 fantastic minutes as I try to sort out who's Peter 1, who's Peter 2, who's Peter 3. If you guys really want Jaws, I could watch it again. I just have to request it from the library. I'm pretty sure we have it.
Yeah.
If you want Jaws, I'll go with Jaws. I mean, I'm not enthusiastic. The one time I saw it, I not to disappoint anyone, but I was like, "What's the big deal? I'm not scared. I don't think this is wow amazing." But
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I'll say this. Okay. I I have a complicated relationship with the movie because all I see is film Twitter all day long, just being like, Jaws is one of the greatest movies of all time. And it's a look, I think it is an accomplishment. I think Steven Spielberg effectively made an atmospheric horror movie that takes place in the summer. I think that it accomplishes a lot, but it's King Kong in the water. You know what I mean? It's a very big monster movie that was made for like the blockbuster season. Like it's very much a perfect movie product of its time. And so there's a lot to be admired with it. But I also think that there's enough things to criticize too. It's like, it's a monster movie.
And you mean the original 1933, I think, King Kong, not the 1976 Jessica Lange remake, correct?
Well, right, but it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, as an idea, that's what it is. It's this spectacle laden, scary, monster, nefarious thing that you have to defeat. You have to figure out a way to outsmart or basically just to get around, to survive. So,
well, I mean, I think it was listed as one of the AFI's 100 greatest films. But again, the one time I saw it, and I saw it with one of my friends, neither of us were impressed as to why people said, "Oh, this is great," and we're all going to be terrified. We were like, "No, it's fine." We didn't think it was the greatest film. I'm sorry.
It says not great.
No, it's not. No, not the greatest film.
So what you're saying there, Rick, is that you want to go see the Spider-Man movie? Is that what you're telling us right
now? Listen, Jaws. The thing I hold against Jaws, if you guys really want to know, is the fact that it started the blockbuster. Okay, it started what we're currently living through, and as much as it's a good version of that, just like Raiders of the Lost Ark, but they are the start of where we currently are, and. Yeah, sorry,
I'll put it this way: when I not to be a spoiler, but when Robert Shaw, I think it's Robert Shaw, when he gets devoured,
yeah,
I was laughing.
I mean,
all right,
it is
I wasn't like, oh, I'm so scared, and people, throwing my popcorn in the air. I'm going, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, then. So I guess next week, Spider-Man: No Way Home with the super fun version. It's not. Well, we'll do Jaws next week. I think we all need to do a refresher because I mean, look, these movies are rough, so we need to go back to something that's at least somewhat decent that can lift our spirits up and not completely kill our love for cinema. Because movies like the ones that we've seen over the last few weeks are not exactly helping matters. And just a quick little note here because I didn't really get to it earlier, but out of all the movies that I saw this weekend, I think Breaking was probably the best movie that was in theaters that I saw this weekend. Samaritan was probably the best movie that I saw, but those are movies that I think I gave like a 3 and a 3.5 out of 5 out of 5 movies came out this weekend. And the best movie I can rate it was a 3.5 that technically came out in streaming. So I just go to show you like where we're at right now. Things are not exactly in the best place, and they're not exactly getting any better. So I don't know. Hopefully things get good. The only movie that I look at coming up that's like, I hope this is actually pretty good is the film Amsterdam. Have you guys seen the previews for this one with like Margot Robbie and I think Chris Rock is in it too, if I'm not mistaken?
No, I haven't even heard of it.
No.
If I'm not mistaken, it's a David Russell movie.
Oh, the one where they're all dressed up in heavy costumes and like wigs. Christian Bale's in it too. Yeah. No, no. This is a movie that David O. Russell's like, as much as critics have kind of like been smacking him in the face since American Hustle, I've actually liked his work for the most part. So I guess I would say I'm looking forward to it, but with bated breath.
Yeah. I think I remember the trailer, and I'm thinking it's they say it's based on a true story, but it looks like it's taking a far too comedic look at whatever the true story was.
Yeah, Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, and John David Washington are all in the film. So,
yeah.
Well,
We'll
Yeah.
see.
I mean, like I said, there's not a whole lot to look forward to, so I'm just hoping that one's pretty good. So, and shout out to Spencer who gave the answer to the question that I asked him about 20 minutes ago. So, right as we're ending the film, but at least he actually answered it. So I'll give him a little bit of credit there. So yeah, next week we'll be talking about the film Jaws, and hopefully we can lift our spirits up. So I'm gonna give you guys a little chance here to promote anything that you want to promote. Hopefully Rob is gonna make an exclusive announcement at his new YouTube channel that he's gonna be starting and posting on regularly on his own
No,
time.
no,
No,
no.
nah,
I am gonna
shit.
be writing some reviews though. Then I will be posting on my Twitter, which is at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to be reviewing a few movies I've been meaning to for a while. The movie Shrink, starring Kevin Spacey from 2009, and Any Given Sunday from 1999. With football season just around the corner, I'm going to review that because it's one of my favorite movies, probably my favorite movie about professional football. Because I think it just gets so many things right. The advent of like the mobile quarterback, passing, the heavy passing, versus the traditional like run scheme. So I just got a lot right, and I think it's a really important movie depicting professional football. So I'll be doing those two coming up in the next week, and then I'll just be doing my regular shows with Jacob, and we'll be reviewing Jaws next Monday.
Yeah, even Cassie's yelling at you now.
Okay.
Start the damn YouTube channel.
I have to figure out, like, I haven't even figured out like the StreamYard or even doing videos yet. So yeah, it's going to be a process, but I'm starting.
Well, like I said, we're not gonna leave you alone until you do it. So figure it
Okay.
out. And then, Mr. Rick, where could they find more of you? Where's your YouTube channel? Where's all your stuff to?
I haven't had a YouTube channel since I had to do advanced storytelling for one of my college courses. I'm very reluctant to do YouTube because I'm probably too lazy to start editing and things like that. Well, I'm wrapping up the Summer Under the Stars series because we're coming to the end of August. So I'll be probably devoting myself to reviewing m- more recent movies as well as just clearing out the backlog of DVRs that I have. You can find me still at Rick's Cafe Texan or Rick's Texan Reviews. And yeah, I'm going to indulge in Jaws, which is I guess yeah, big fish, big fish movie. That's I have nothing.
Big Fish movie that's your best sell to one of
Yeah.
the greatest the cinematic blockbusters ever made in human history. A movie about the giant shark. Have you
No,
never been to
no.
Universal Studios before?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did the Universal tour, and yeah, the Jaws thing was fun, but and the now I'm coughing. I mean that's I'm sorry, Jacob, but a real cinematic turning point is Thor: The Dark World. We know this. We know this.
Yeah, it's when cinema died. All right. Well, let you guys know that tomorrow night we'll be doing the barroom podcast. I think we're at episode 13 now. That's how many of these that we've been doing. So we're at a lot of topics we're gonna talk about tomorrow. We're gonna talk more in depth about Olivia Wilde throwing Shia LaBeouf under the bus, trying to be a feminist hero and having that backfire in her face. We'll talk a little bit about Sydney Sweeney getting her family attacked because of a thin blue line T-shirt. We're going to talk about Netflix's Resident Evil getting canceled after 6 weeks on the platform. People who are defending She-Hulk are now calling for IMDb to change his reviews so that people can't leave bad reviews of the TV show anymore. And then David Zaslav, Warner Brothers Discovery, is he going to war against his own progressive employees? Is this something that's going to, I guess, come into a complete dumpster fire over there at Warner Brothers Discovery? They're already losing billions upon billions right now, so might as well lose a little bit more. And then on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday, myself, TW, CS Anderson, we're also going to have a couple, Johnson, not Anderson. We're also going to have a few other guests. We're going to be talking about the TV show Power Rangers, the old school, early 90s television show of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. More specifically, we're going to be talking about the Japanese show that inspired it, Super Sentai. We're going to be talking about Jew Ranger on Wednesday night. That's going to be a very interesting debate conversation about that show. Then, of course, a little bit after that, we'll be doing the Black Pill stream on Bounding in the Comics as well. So Wednesday will be a very, very busy day for us. Oh yeah, I was just literally just reading to what Cassie said. She's really hyped for Jaws, so this is another reason why I think we should watch Spider-Man instead, just to kind of kill her expectation. But no, next week we'll be doing Josh. Go ahead, Rob.
No, I just wanted to say real quick, like the movie's Jaws is like, you don't understand, like it is that's not only the best version, it's like a million miles better of a version of a movie than like Piranha. Or like anything that you could compare it to. So it's like for people that love horror, love genre movies, like I get it. But it's also an older movie from the 70s. And so I'm hoping that both of you can at least watch this and appreciate, oh, hey, someone knows how to use a fucking camera. So that compared to like the modern blockbusters we've been watching. So it's just little things like you can take away from it that even if the movie itself is not your cup of tea, it's a big shark and people die.
I would be more eager to watch Jaws: The Revenge at this point.
Oh, come on. The Michael Caine one, the 3D one?
Yes, did you not hear what he said about it?
Like saying you want to watch Tremors 3.
It's one of the greatest
vacation house.
Yes, it's one of the greatest quotes ever. Where he says, I didn't see Jaws 4. I heard it was terrible, but I saw the house built me, and it's wonderful.
Well, since Cassie's such a big super fan of Jaws, I don't know, maybe join us next week until we can actually talk about this one instead of just sitting there talking shit in the YouTube comments. Why don't you actually come on the show and defend your movie because we're talking about it next week, and maybe we'll have some other guests on here. I know maybe we can get Sarah on the show, or maybe a Christian Toto, or maybe Spencer, or anyone else who wants to talk about Jaws. So
Cassie, you're free to send me the 10 Commandments GIF I constantly use at
GIF.
It's
and Rob. GIF. It's
GIF.
A G.
GIF. It's a
GIF.
It's a GIF. It's a GIF. It's not a giraffe, is it?
Mm-hmm.
No,
GIF.
It's a giraffe.
It reminds me of the old Cat Williams skit. It's not, his name is Bakov. That's if you like to. Yeah, go ahead and join. Go ahead and do it. We'll see you next week. How about that one? So yeah, we're gonna be having hopefully some actual fun coming up here. Who knows? We may even do a couple more classic movies coming up. Like I said, the release schedule is not great, and they're only removing movies off the schedule. There's enough they want people to just give up on movies altogether on 2022.
I'm willing to do one of those Friday night ones with Jaws: The Revenge.
No, that's definitely not gonna happen. I have to put my foot down somewhere. I mean, like I said, if we do that, then the next thing you know, we're gonna be watching like Tremors 5, and I just refuse.
I've only seen the first two, and I like them both, so I don't know.
I haven't seen Tremors 2. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen the third one, but I haven't seen the second one. So it's like, well, Kevin Bacon's not gonna be in it. You haven't seen any of the Tremors movies, like even the first one, which is the only good one.
No, and I love Reba. So I don't know why.
It's a great movie. I grew up renting Tremors again and again and again and again. So
Tremors, the first one holds up very, very well if you haven't seen that one. So maybe we'll have to talk about that.
All right.
So we will see you guys tomorrow night on the Barroom Podcast. Hopefully Wednesday night to talk about Power Rangers and Super Sentai. Then next week we'll be talking about Giant Fishies with Josh as well. So thank you all you guys for joining us tonight. Shout out to everyone in the chat: Duke Nukem, Cassie, Josh, who's recovering from COVID. We got Spencer who joined us in the chat tonight. Everyone who I didn't mention, thanks for joining us tonight. We're gonna go ahead and roll out of here. I'm going to hit the intro that Josh loves, even though he's never here when we actually play it. A little bit of Spring Yard. Good night. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.